It's February 15th, 1942. In a Ford motor factory on the outskirts of Singapore City, British Lieutenant General Arthur Percival sits across a table from Japanese General Tomoyuki Yamashita. Percival's hands are trembling. Within minutes, he will sign the unconditional surrender of 85,000 British, Australian and Indian troops to a Japanese force less than half that size. Winston Churchill will later call it the worst disaster and largest capitulation in British history. This is how the supposedly impregnable fortress of the British Empire fell in just 7 days. Hi, I'm Jesse Alexander, and welcome to Real-Time History. Today we're covering the fall of Singapore day by day. Background and strategic context. To understand why Singapore's fall was so catastrophic, you have to understand what Singapore meant to the British Empire in 1942. Situated at the southern tip of the Malay Peninsula, Singapore was the cornerstone of British power in Asia. Its massive naval base, completed in 1938 at a cost of £60 million, was designed to project British power across the entire Pacific and Indian Ocean. Churchill called it the Gibraltar of the East. It was supposed to be unassailable. But Singapore had a fundamental flaw that its planners never adequately addressed. Its famous guns, massive 15-inch naval cannons, pointed south out to sea. The assumption had always been that any attack would come by naval assault from the south. Nobody seriously planned for an attack overland from the north through the dense jungles of the Malay Peninsula. That assumption would prove catastrophic.
Facing the British Empire's prized fortress is the Japanese 25th Army, commanded by General Tomoyuki Yamashita, already earning the nickname the Tiger of Malaya. Yamashita has at his disposal 3 battle-hardened divisions, the Imperial Guards Division, the 5th Division, and the 18th Division, totaling around 70,000 men across the Malayan Campaign, though only about 35,000 will participate in the final assault on Singapore Island itself. His men are experienced, highly motivated, and have spent years training for jungle warfare. They are also running critically low on ammunition and supplies, a fact the British do not know and one that will haunt them long after the surrender. Defending Singapore and the Malay Peninsula is British Lieutenant General Arthur Percival, commanding around 85,000 troops drawn from Britain, Australia, India and Malaya. On paper, Percival outnumbers his enemy significantly, but his forces are poorly coordinated, inadequately trained for jungle warfare, and plagued by catastrophic command failures at every level. Many of his Indian units are newly raised and have never seen combat. His Australian troops, battle-hardened from North Africa, are furious at what they see as British incompetence and imperial arrogance. And Percival himself is a cautious, indecisive commander, entirely unsuited to the fast-moving crisis he is about to face. The stage is set for one of history's most shocking military collapse. The Malayan Campaign. December 1941 to January 1942. The disaster at Singapore does not begin on the island itself. It begins 1,100 kilometers to the north on the beaches of Kota Baru on December 8, 1941, just hours after the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. Japanese forces land simultaneously along the Malay Peninsula and in southern Thailand, immediately wrong-footing British commanders who expected the main blow to fall further south. Yamashita's strategy is breathtakingly audacious. Rather than slugging through the jungle on foot, his troops advance rapidly down the peninsula's road network, often commandeering bicycles to maintain pace. The image of Japanese soldiers cycling silently through rubber plantations at night terrifies defenders and accelerates the psychological collapse of British resistance. Japanese soldier Masaru Wachi recalls the surreal efficiency of the advance. We moved faster than anyone thought possible. The jungle, which the British believed was our greatest obstacle, became our greatest weapon. Wachi, Imperial Japanese Army Records. British defensive lines collapse one after another. At Jitra, a position that was supposed to hold for 3 months falls in under 15 hours. At the Slim River on January 7th, Japanese tanks shatter an entire British division in a single night assault, capturing 2 brigadiers and thousands of men. General Archibald Wavell, the Allied Supreme Commander for Southeast Asia, visits the front and is appalled by what he finds. Commanders are making decisions based on outdated maps. Units are retreating without orders. Communication between formations has broken down almost entirely.
By the end of January 1942, the British have been pushed the entire length of the peninsula in just 7 weeks. On January 31, the last Allied troops cross the causeway connecting Johor to Singapore Island. Engineers blow a 24-meter gap in the causeway behind them. Singapore is now an island fortress, but it is a fortress that is about to be besieged. Australian Commander Major General Gordon Bennett surveys his exhausted men and writes bluntly in his diary, "The situation is serious. We have been out-generaled, outwitted, and outfought." Bennett, diary entry, February 1942. The siege begins February 8th. Yamashita now faces a serious problem. His army is exhausted and dangerously low on shells and supplies. He has enough ammunition for perhaps one more major offensive push. He knows that if the British hold out for more than a few weeks, his entire campaign could unravel. Speed is everything. On the night of February 8th, under cover of darkness and artillery fire, Japanese assault troops cross the Johor Strait in small boats and collapsible craft. The crossing point, the northwestern shore of Singapore Island, is held by Australian units of the 22nd Brigade. The Australians fight desperately, inflicting heavy casualties on the first Japanese wave. Private Harold Ramsey of the 218th Battalion recalls the chaos of that night. "They came out of the dark in hundreds. We were firing until our barrels burned, but there were always more of them coming." Despite fierce Australian resistance, the Japanese establish a breachhead. British command failures compound the disaster. Percival has spread his defensive forces thinly around the entire 72-kilometer coastline of the island, refusing to concentrate his reserves at the most likely crossing points. When the Japanese breakthrough comes, there are no concentrated reserves available to counterattack and drive them back into the strait. By dawn on February 9th, Yamashita has 13,000 men on Singapore Island and is expanding his breachhead rapidly. The collapse of the perimeter, February 9th to 12th. Over the next 4 days, the Japanese advance with stunning speed. On February 9th, they capture Tenaga Airfield, the last operational airfield on the island. The RAF, already reduced to a handful of serviceable aircraft, evacuates its remaining planes to Sumatra. Singapore's air cover is gone. On February 10th, Yamashita pushes his men hard despite their exhaustion and supply shortages. His bluff is extraordinary. He projects absolute confidence while privately knowing his position is precarious. He issues a direct personal appeal to Percival to surrender, which Percival ignores. But the psychological pressure on British command is immense. Wavell sends a telegram to Percival that reveals just how badly the strategic situation has deteriorated.
There must be no thought of sparing the troops or the civilian population. Commanders and senior officers should die with their troops. Wavell to Percival, February 10th, 1942. On February 11th, Japanese forces capture the Bukit Timah area, the high ground at the center of the island and the location of Singapore's main fuel and food depots. With these supplies now in Japanese hands, the British position becomes critical. Percival's perimeter is shrinking by the hour. The human cost of the fighting is immense on both sides. Japanese soldier Tsuji Masanobu later writes, "Our men were fighting on willpower alone. Ammunition was almost gone, but we could not stop. To stop was to lose everything." Tsuji, Singapore, the Japanese version. For the civilians of Singapore, the experience is already catastrophic. The city is under constant artillery bombardment and air attack. Hospitals are overwhelmed. Around 1 million civilians, including hundreds of thousands of refugees who fled south from Malaya, are crammed into an area designed for far fewer. Food and water are running desperately short. The water crisis, February 13th to the 14th. By February 13th, the Japanese have compressed the British perimeter to a small area around Singapore city itself. But the decisive blow is not delivered by tanks or infantry. It is delivered by engineers. Japanese forces cut the main pipeline, bringing water from Johor to Singapore. The island's reservoirs, already under pressure from a swollen civilian population, begin to run critically low. Percival's chief engineer, Brigadier Ivan Simpson, delivers a devastating assessment. At current consumption rates, Singapore's water supply will last no more than 24 hours. Without water, a city of over 1 million people faces catastrophe. Disease, fire, and civil breakdown will follow within days. Simpson had actually spent months before the Japanese invasion pleading with Percival to build proper northern defenses for the island. Percival had refused, fearing it would damage civilian morale. Now that decision was delivering its full and terrible consequence. On February 14th, the fighting reaches the outskirts of the city itself. Japanese artillery shells fall on Raffles Hotel, on the General Hospital, and on the crowded civilian shelters along the waterfront. The Alexandra Hospital massacre occurs on this day. Japanese troops storm the hospital, killing patients on operating tables and murdering over 200 medical staff and patients in a war crime that will long outlast the battle itself. Percival calls a final conference of his commanders. The assessments are unanimous. Ammunition is nearly exhausted. Water will last perhaps one more day. The civilian population faces mass casualties from thirst, disease, and bombardment. Further resistance is militarily pointless. Australian General Bennett is characteristically blunt. To continue fighting means the massacre of the civilian population and the destruction of the city. There is only one decision possible. Bennett, War Diary, February 14th, 1942.
The surrender, February 15th, 1942. On the morning of February 15th, 1942, Percival sends a message to Yamashita requesting a ceasefire to discuss surrender terms. Yamashita's response is immediate and uncompromising. Unconditional surrender only by 8:30 p.m. that evening. That afternoon, Percival leads a small delegation carrying a white flag and the Union Jack through the ruined streets of Singapore to the Ford Motor Factory at Bukit Timah. Photographs of the meeting capture one of the most iconic images of British imperial decline. A tall, thin, defeated British general sitting across from a compact, imperious Japanese one. Yamashita demands unconditional surrender. Percival, after a brief and painful hesitation, agrees. At 8:30 p.m. on February 15th, 1942, all firing stops.
85,000 British, Australian and Indian troops lay down their arms. It is the largest surrender of British-led forces in history. Yamashita, privately stunned that his bluff has worked, later admits, "My attack on Singapore was a bluff that worked. I knew that if it did not work, I would be beaten." Yamashita, post-war testimony.